Good morning. My name is Dan Ender. This is class ELM 550 with Dr. Grant. Topic 2 assignment, questioning strategies. I'll get right into the presentation. Hey, good morning. I'm going to discuss the questioning strategies and the depth of knowledge and how those two are related. Okay, so the depth of knowledge, TOK levels, I'm going to discuss how we're going to apply those levels to the 5th grade class unit about Native Americans we've been working on. Then I'm going to discuss formative and summative assessments and how they related to the depth of knowledge levels. And then I'm going to discuss three digital tools that you can use in a classroom to help foster a student's higher order questioning skills, stimulate discussion, and promote inquiry and critical thinking. Depth of knowledge levels. So depth of knowledge it measures how much student understanding is needed to answer questions or complete a task related to a lesson. We, the teachers, use the DOK to help gauge how well our students understand and retain our lessons during tests and other assessments. There are 4 levels to the DOK. And the first level is recall and reproduction. The second level, skills and concept. The third level, strategic thinking and reasoning. And fourth level, or I might say step, so a level or step would be extended thinking. Recall and reproduction. Okay, this is when students just simply state the facts, details, information. It doesn't require any of the manipulating of the information that they have learned to get the correct answer. They just reproduce the facts, the details, or information. The questions that revolve around this step are the who, the what, when, why, where, and how. The second step or level is skills and concepts. This level, students are encouraged to expand their thinking, not just recall facts, the details of information. It requires some manipulating of information to help answer a question or complete an activity. They apply what they know and what they have learned to compare, describe, categorize, or explain concept or a unit or a lesson. Students will be asked like to infer, organize, compare, contrast, interpret, use context clues, or make observations of the lesson that they learned or the information that they have learned or researched. Strategic thinking and reasoning. This students begin to plan. They start to reason, analyze, evaluate information to solve real-world problems or select from multiple outcomes. They also will discuss the results and provide sufficient evidence. And students think critically and analyze information more precisely. And they will apply multiple skills they have developed to reach an educated conclusion. So they're going to use more than what they learned in social studies. They might use a skill they learned in reading, writing, science, or math, but they're going to use multiple skills. And they'll provide several reasons or details that support their analysis. Then they draw conclusions and provide credible arguments to reinforce their position. Extended thinking. This is where they really start to think critically and creatively over an extended period of time to solve a complex real-world problem. They engage in thorough investigations, modify their strategies, develop real-world solutions. And some of the characteristics included in extended thinking are addressing real-world issues, present to a broader public audience, collaborate project-based tasks. So they're going to collaborate on project-based tasks. And the questions are going to be something like, what steps would you take to resolve this real-world problem or issue? What information will be included to support your stance? Okay, so now we've been working on a unit about Native Americans, and the social studies standards was compare how people from different cultures solve common problems, such as distribution of food, shelter, and social interactions. And then we did put some art in there too, some art design. And that is cultural, social, and historical awareness. Explain how art and design are used to communicate ideas, beliefs, and values of groups and individuals. Okay, so I'm going to apply the depth of knowledge or the DOK steps of the Native American activity. So the 5th graders will compare 3 different Native American dwellings during the 1300s. They will need to discuss the significance of the food they ate, the materials used to build the dwellings, how they controlled the temperature in the dwellings, and what members of the family lived in the dwelling and their roles. So the first step or first level is recall and reproduction. And these are some of the questions that I would focus on. So these are more fact-based questions, just recalling. So what are the three foods of the three sisters? List five materials Native Americans used to construct their dwellings. List the specific roles family members filled in the Native American family unit. Pick three or choose three of the Native American tribes we have learned. And name two different ways the Native Americans heated their houses. The second level or step, skills and concept, these are five of the probing questions I would ask or we would go through. Okay, why were the three sisters so crucial to the Native Americans? How did the environment affect the material Native Americans used to construct their dwellings? How did the environment affect the food the Native Americans ate? In what ways did the role of each family member impact the life and survival of the Native American tribes? How did the designs of the dwellings help control the temperature inside? Then we get to the strategic thinking and reasoning. So they're going to start, these are a little more complex. These progressively get a little bit harder, a little more complex. So the first question, discuss how the Native Americans' food source and building materials affect their dwellings. Discuss how the family size affected the construction of the Native American dwelling. Discuss one tribe with limited resources and how they demonstrated their resourcefulness. Compare and contrast the dwellings of two Native American tribes you choose. How did each tribe's knowledge of natural resources, environmental influence, materials they chose to construct their dwellings? This will last. The most complex level is extended thinking. And this is where they're really going to have to go with what the research and what we have learned. We're going to really apply that to these questions. Okay, what sustainable techniques from Native Americans' ingenuity and resourcefulness is in designing their dwellings could we apply today? Please provide three specific details with evidence. Create a model of each Native American dwelling, highlighting the building materials, designs, and temperature control. Those are they chose three, so they have to make three models of the three that they chose. They critically analyze and describe the complex interrelationship between material, family unit, food, and environment in constructing the Native American dwelling. Select one of the three Native American tribes you've studied and provide three compelling reasons why you would choose to live with that tribe. The fifth and the last would be how would the living conditions and survival strategies of Native American tribes have changed if they had access to different food sources and building materials? So those were the questions that I would want them to be able to answer. So once we're learning this, we're going through the lesson, we have to assess, our teachers will have to assess. So we have to figure out what they're retaining or what they're learning. The assessments that I've used are the formative and summative assessment. I'll explain a little bit of the assessment process. So the assessment is the essential part of the education. It requires a teacher to collect and analyze data to see how well students are progressing. Assessments help teachers understand how effective their teaching strategies are. They also help the teacher identify students' strengths and weaknesses and ensure their academic goals are being achieved. And the two types of assessments being used are formative and summative. Formative assessments are the tools we use are like quizzes, games, projects, presentations, group projects, and tests that measure students' learning progress during the unit. So we're testing as they are learning. Summative assessments are tools like quizzes, final exams, reports, papers, end-of-class projects, and tests that measure how much a student has learned throughout the unit. So that usually is at the end of the unit when they are tested. So the formative assessment, recall and reproduction, and skills and concepts. The assessment tool I really like to use for this level is games. So I like to integrate games into their learning. And the game that we're integrating this time is Native American memory. I'll use the 5 questions we discussed and several more because it's facts, so I can fit so many more facts in this type of memory. So it'll be 5 questions and several more. There'll be Native American questions on one card and the answer on the other. They pair up, they lay those cards down, and they just flip and they try to match. What I like about that is they have to read the question or read the answer, and they really have to think of where that question is and what that answer is. So they have to read it more than one time, several times. And this is really good because it's for the recall and reproduction questions because it does pair well with this type of activity because it's recalling information. So it really focuses on recalling information. And the skills and concepts, I like games, so we use Kahoot. This is a web-based educational game. where I can integrate the lesson into this game so I can choose what information that is in this game. And they can compete and learn information as important information with this game. And the questions I'm going to use are those 5 probing questions and several more, because these questions are they don't have to critically think as much, so I can fit more questions. And that's why I like Kahoot, because I can fit so many questions. So many questions. We can get a lot of questions in. They can answer a lot of questions and learn a lot of questions and answers. And the probing questions, again, are going to be the probing 5 probing questions, and there'll be several more. And these are multiple choice, which can be created to help students improve their knowledge of Native American content. So I can create a lot of these questions to really encompass everything they have learned, or a lot of what they have learned. A formative assessment, the strategic thinking and reasoning, and extended thinking. I use exit tickets, and I use those as one question the last 10 to 15 minutes of class. It's on Canvas, so it is digital. They sign into Canvas, they go to the assessment or the formative assessment section, and then they just read the question. They complete the question with complete sentences. And they need to support their answer with 2 details. And they need to think critically and make the connections and list evidence and details. So because it's kind of more in-depth, I do let them use their notes. So any notes that they have written, they can use for these questions. And the strategic thinking and reasoning questions I really want them to focus on are compare and contrast the dwellings of the two Native American tribes that they selected. And then in what ways did the role of each family member impact the life and survival of the Native American tribes? Then the extended thinking question I want them to really focus on, and that'll be more like the 15 minutes in the class, is critically analyze and describe the complex interrelationship between material, family unit, food, and environment in the construction of the Native American dwelling. And I chose those 3 questions because I feel they really, really encompass, or they really pair well with the standard we've been working on. That standard, again, is the compare how people from different cultures solve common problems such as distribution of food, shelter, and social interaction. So those 3 questions really pair well with that standard. And then there's summative assessment. And the first part of the summative assessment is a group project where they take the 3 tribes they've been researching, and the 3 models that they created, they make a presentation, and it's a group project where they do get a group grade, and their whole group, they want to get 80 points, or they want to achieve 80 points out of 100. And since it's summative, I had to put, and this is a group, so we do have to do a couple of parts where it's just them, so I can just test their individual knowledge. And that the first summative is they had to complete a table with all 6 tribes we have been discussing. And I put the tribe, and then they have to name the dwelling, the materials used, the method of temperature control, the family unit, and the roles, their roles in the food that they ate, or the food they farmed. In this part, since it's a table and I want this more facts, I want this is a closed book, so they can't use their notes, and their goal is to earn 80 out of 100 points. In the second one, there's going to be 2 questions. So there's 2 questions, and these questions are: how did each tribe's knowledge of natural resources and environment influence the materials they chose to construct their dwellings? List 3 details with evidence, and discuss how the Native Americans' food source and building materials affect their dwellings. List 3 details with evidence. And since there's a lot more connection they need to make here and critically think here, so it is open notes. And I do remind them as we're working through our notes, I'll say these are notes you can use on your test. And we worked on this, so when they know when I say that, we spend a little more time. We organize those notes a little bit better than the regular notes. We get those ready for the test. So I don't want this to be just recalling facts. I want them to really think about the concepts and critically think. And again, I want them to get on this too. They need to get 80 out of 100 points for the assessment, for the summative assessment. Okay, now I want to discuss the digital tools that I like to use. So integrating digital tools in the classroom, it allows me to introduce new and exciting, fun and interactive learning. So it just engages them a little bit different way than just me lecturing. So the first one I like to use is called Nearpod. I can create interactive content with videos, images, and quizzes. I can include specific lesson content. So it's not something that I find, I actually make. So I can really gear it towards what we have been learning, what we've been researching. and it helps keep the students engaged. And students can add comments and communicate with their ideas to me and to their peers. So we can throw ideas back and forth with Nearpod, which I can get some really good conversations going with them. And what I like about this too, it's compatible with Canva, Canvas, Google Slides, PowerPoint. So the information that I already have digitally, I can convert to Nearpod and put that into my lesson. The second digital tool I like is called Canva. It's where the students can create really amazing presentations. They can create posters, infographics, and more. And what I like about this is it allows them to customize their research. So they do their research paper and they can customize it so they can share it with their peers or share it with me. They can add pictures, they can add graphics, they can add videos, and they can add, a lot more. And I like about this too is that this allows students to collaborate so they can share their presentation. So at the end, like at the end of a test, a lot of times there's 10 to 15 minutes where they still have to be quiet so everyone finishes. They can work together, not saying or, but they can work together and work on their presentation. And they can add information from different sides of the room or different classes even. And what I like about Canva is it really makes them revisit their research. So they have to go back, reread their research, and figure out what they want to share with me or with their peers. So they really have to research it or revisit the research and reword it. So they're reading their information over and over again, and they're just get to research or revisit their information and retell it and put it in a different format. And again, the last digital tool, and I really like Kahoot. It's Kahoot. It really is engaging, and it allows them to think about a topic in a fun and exciting way. I can add their specific lesson material, so I can make each Kahoot game specifically to that lesson and to even each student. I can switch it up. I can make different Kahoots for different level students. And it takes practice to create multiple choice questions that require more than just recalling information, but it's possible because you have to create a question and then you also have to create an answer or three answers. And I like to do one funny answer, and I like to do one answer that could be, and there's one answer that obviously is. So that could be, it creates, I like to do them in teams, so or in groups where they really have to discuss those two questions, which question is the right one and which one could be the trick question. So they really have to discuss and they have to analyze what question would be the best question. It gets really good conversation started. They really, and it's competitive too. So they want to win. So they have their notes out there researching. I really like Kahoot. And you can make multiple choice critical thinking questions. And you can get the results right away also. So we do a Kahoot. I can get it when they're done. I can get the results and I can figure out what do I need to focus on tomorrow. So if I didn't talk about the building materials for the Native American structures or dwellings, I can go over that and reteach that again. So you can get answers or you can get the results right away, and you can adjust your teaching to your kids' strengths or weaknesses, or students' strengths or weaknesses. Okay, so my takeaways of this presentation are the depth of knowledge. The DOK assesses the level of students' understanding required to answer questions or complete tasks related to the lesson. There are 4 levels of DOK, and as the levels increase, so does the amount of manipulation, or the students have to use their information to answer those questions. So they have to use and make more connections to that or their information to answer those questions. They will need to engage their critical thinking, make connections, employ multiple skills, draw inferences, and think creatively as the levels grow. So as the levels go up, they have to use more of their critical thinking. Then understanding each depth of knowledge level of learning enables teachers to create appropriate assessments tailored to each student's needs. This approach helps educators evaluate how well each student grasps the material and allows them to make necessary adjustments to support their academic progress. And for instance, like for instance, you could do Kahoot to assess students at the critical thinking level may not be the most suitable choice to use Kahoot to ask extended thinking level. So you want to make sure you're using the correct assessment with the correct DOK. All right, well, I'd like to thank you for listening to my presentation. If any questions, don't be afraid to reach out. Thank you, and see you tomorrow.